Pregnant by a horse? That was the question that set the small Texas town ablaze when Sophia's belly began growing uncontrollably. It wasn't a typical pregnancy growth, but something frightening, almost monstrous. Since Sophia spent entire days by the side of Thunder, her favorite horse, rumors quickly took on a life of their own. Yet no one could have imagined what was truly happening. When the truth came to light, the entire town was left in shock. Sophia's story begins on a morning so peaceful that the birdsong and the swaying trees seemed to lull the thoughts of anyone in that stretch of land. The farm where she lived had been built by her grandparents decades earlier and carried an aura of serenity that matched perfectly with the orange-hued horizons at dusk. Life there flowed slowly, in rhythm with the animals and the harvests, without major surprises. However, like every small town, there was also plenty of curiosity and often an inclination toward unchecked gossip. Little did anyone know that the future held such an extraordinary situation that it would shake the foundations of the entire community. Since childhood, Sophia enjoyed climbing a small hill to watch the sunset. It was there that, as a little girl, her father taught her to differentiate the colors in the sky: the radiant orange, the vivid red, the warm yellow. The father-daughter relationship was always strong. He was a dedicated man who loved horses and found in them a sort of refuge from life's pains. When Sophia was small, her mother fell gravely ill, and each time her condition worsened, her father would carry her in his arms to the stable, inviting her to meet those four-legged friends that could, in some way, bring comfort. In this manner, even amidst storms, their family bond grew stronger, and their love for animals grew with it. Equestrian tradition had run in the family for generations. Sophia's grandfather had been a respected horse trainer, known for his gentle methods that valued the animal's well-being. Instead of whips and shouting, he used a calm voice, soft contact, and plenty of patience. This legacy was passed on to Sophia's father, who taught her early on the importance of building trust with horses, as if each one had its own distinct personality. When Sophia turned 16, she was given Thunder, a stallion with black coat and expressive eyes which seemed to understand her every emotion. Thunder became not just a pet, but a true friend, especially when her mother's health showed signs of irreversible decline. Around that time, Sophia's mother passed away, leaving behind a deep longing. To soften her grief, her father tried to distract her by encouraging horseback rides. Each time she galloped, she felt the wind on her face and a temporary relief from the mourning that had taken over her heart. Thunder came to symbolize both strength and solace. Over time, the open wound left by her mother's death began to heal, though it never fully closed. Her mother's favorite mare remained on the farm, a way of keeping her memory alive. It was precisely during that period that the farm became Sophia's most important refuge. As she matured, she realized that horses were a fundamental part of her world, as essential as her own heartbeat. When Sophia was about 22, she suffered another loss. Her father died following a sudden illness. Everything happened too fast for her to prepare. Overnight, she had to take over the farm and all the responsibilities that came with it. Her heart was shattered. Thunder, however, remained the great link between her and her childhood memories, as he was her father's last gift to her. Each time she stroked the horse, she felt her father's care once more. The smell of hay, the sound of horseshoes on the ground, and Thunder's neigh when he saw her approaching would revive tender memories and warm her spirit in that moment of so much pain and loneliness. Over the years, the farm began to face financial difficulties. To remedy this, Sophia hired some workers and sought ways to increase income, whether by growing vegetables or selling handmade products in the nearby town. It was in this context that she met Richard. He was a young man who had moved to the area in search of work opportunities in the countryside. He ended up being hired to help with fence repairs and little by little demonstrated such great competence and dedication that he soon became Sophia's right-hand man. Humble in origin, Richard proved reliable, always willing to roll up his sleeves, earning not only her trust but also her heart. Their relationship blossomed naturally. Initially, it was limited to sharing ideas about the farm, quick chats over breakfast or during work breaks. Then came the longer looks, discreet smiles, until they finally decided to admit their feelings. It wasn't a romance full of cinematic twists, but a love built on daily routine, on small acts of care and partnership. They were married in a simple ceremony on the farm itself, with a few close friends and relatives. Photos taken that day showed genuine smiles from those who found solace, hope, and a new beginning. Surrounded by green grass and horses watching from a distance, they sealed a union that promised to be long-lasting. From the day they got married, life carried on in harmony. Richard brought new ideas to the farm, seeking to modernize crop production and expand livestock in order to earn better revenue. Meanwhile, Sophia cared for the horses with the mastery she had inherited from her father and grandfather, in addition to handling administrative tasks such as selling products and resolving financial issues. They formed a balanced team, each bringing specific skills. Whenever they found a bit of spare time, they would ride together, following quiet trails to admire the scenery. On such occasions, their connection with each other and with nature became even more evident. It was as if the farm had become a symbol of a new phase, full of hope and dreams. However, anyone observing Sophia could notice something particular. She had a special fondness for Thunder, the black stallion that had been with her since adolescence. She talked to him as though he were a person, shared affectionate moments, and spent hours in the stable, cleaning, feeding, and brushing the horse's mane. To anyone not familiar with horses, the scene might seem unusual, yet for her it was a healthy habit, laden with affection. Though Richard trusted his wife, he couldn't help feeling a bit jealous. He joked that Thunder was the other man in her life. Amid laughter, Sophia replied that her love for the horse was pure and fraternal, making any comparison with her feelings for her husband impossible. Daily chores went on as usual until one day Sophia began experiencing persistent discomfort, morning sickness, dizziness, and fatigue that forced her to rest more often. She also realized her menstrual cycle was late. She shared her suspicions with Richard, who became hopeful about having a baby. To quell their anxiety, they scheduled an appointment at a health clinic in a neighboring town with better facilities. The drive there was full of silence, interrupted only by Richard's musings about what it would be like to be a father. He wore a smile on his face, yet deep down he was also afraid of the unknown. Upon arriving at the clinic, the wait seemed endless, until they finally entered the doctor's office and received the news that would change their lives. Sophia was pregnant, not with just one baby, but twins, a boy and a girl. The doctor performing the ultrasound smiled as he announced the news, seeing the growing emotion in the couple's eyes. It was an almost magical moment, because at the same time the scan confirmed the pregnancy, it revealed two tiny forms side by side, a sign that the universe had reserved a double delight. Richard squeezed Sophia's hand tightly, feeling euphoria surge in his chest. She, for her part, cried tears of joy. If they had harbored any doubts before, they now knew for certain that the farm would become even more complete with the arrival of the two babies. The news quickly spread throughout the small town. Places like the grocery store, the bakery, and the town square buzzed with chatter about the couple and the long-awaited arrival of twins. Overall, people were warm and supportive. Many older women offered help, sharing tips for pregnancy, recommending teas and folk remedies for morning sickness. Some talked about how beautiful Sophia's love story was, how she had overcome so many personal losses and was now about to start her own family. The local pastor even preached a sermon emphasizing the blessings of motherhood and new life. For a brief period, everything seemed perfect, enveloped in an atmosphere of hope and happiness. However, in small towns, any news soon breeds rumors and imaginative interpretations. Some people began to notice that Sophia's belly was growing abnormally fast. Indeed, in just a few months, she already had a noticeable bump that even lay people found unusual. Questions arose. Are there really only two babies? Could there be more in there? Is she sure about her dates? The initial jokes were harmless, but as time went on, they took on a more sinister tone. Through whispers and sidelong glances, the notion emerged that something supernatural or bizarre was happening. This gave birth to the fanciful story that Thunder might somehow be involved in that pregnancy that defied normal standards. Initially, the rumor was dismissed as a tasteless joke. Those who knew Sophia's character immediately condemned such an insinuation. However, as often happens, it snowballed until some people with overactive imaginations began to treat it like truth. If in the beginning they said she was carrying quadruplets, they soon jumped to even more absurd speculations, claiming that her intense bond with thunder might have triggered some kind of phenomenon incompatible with human nature. These were malicious comments, and those who spread them gave no thought to the pain they could cause Sophia and Richard. Beyond being offensive, such rumors revealed the ignorance and prejudice still present in that community. The atmosphere became heavy for Sophia. People who used to greet her politely in the street now avoided her or exchanged malicious chuckles. She sensed the discomfort even among some childhood friends, who asked strange questions like, "Have you talked to the priest about this?" Or, "Are you sure there's no mistake in the tests?" As her belly grew, the rumors only intensified. To make matters worse, the pregnancy itself brought on increasingly severe symptoms. It wasn't just the usual fatigue. She felt an overwhelming physical pressure, as though something were compressing her organs. She decided to remain at home whenever possible, avoiding contact with the townspeople. Richard, for his part, tried to defend her, but ended up even more stressed because the rumors refused to die down. Despite their mutual trust, the onslaught of negative comments also weighed on Richard psychologically. He began to question why Sophia's belly was indeed growing so quickly. Could there be a serious problem? He hated himself for paying attention to the rumors, but the reality was that his wife's health appeared to be deteriorating. Each day, her pain and weakness intensified. Desperate, he tried to keep her away from the gossip while also battling his own insecurities. If anything worried him more than people's cruelty, it was the prospect of losing both his wife and their babies. In private conversations, he held Sophia and told her everything would be fine, but deep down doubt and fear gnawed at him. Determined to clarify any medical issues, the couple scheduled consultations at a hospital in the state capital, where more advanced medical resources were available. The journey there was tiring. It took hours by car, and every bump in the road brought sharp pain to Sophia's lower back. Once they arrived, they underwent a series of comprehensive tests, including a detailed ultrasound, MRI, and blood work. The hospital's atmosphere was tense because each result was critical to understanding that highly unusual pregnancy. Sophia feared that something might be jeopardizing the twins' lives. Richard feared losing his wife, especially after seeing how she struggled to breathe, as though her vital energy were being drained day by day. It was during this clinical investigation that they received the harshest revelation. After examining a detailed image of Sophia's uterus, the medical team noticed a shadow that was not just the baby's. Further tests revealed a malignant tumor lodged behind the uterine wall. The pregnancy hormones had created an ideal environment for the tumor to grow rapidly. This explained the abnormal enlargement of her abdomen, far beyond what the twins could account for. It also accounted for the pain, shortness of breath, and weight loss Sophia was experiencing, despite her belly swelling ever larger. The diagnosis struck like lightning on a sunny day, deeply shaking the couple's world. While the gossip in town pointed to grotesque theories involving the horse, the reality was far more cruel and complex. Sophia was carrying both her children and a tumor that endangered her life. The lead physician on the case was direct in explaining the situation. Immediate surgical removal of the tumor was critical due to the risk of metastasis. However, the tumor's delicate location and the presence of 2 growing babies greatly complicated the procedure. An aggressive approach might kill or severely harm the twins. Delaying surgery, on the other hand, would allow the cancer to advance, potentially costing Sophia her life. Faced with this dilemma, the doctors advised the couple to consider terminating the pregnancy to increase Sophia's chances of survival. She immediately refused the idea. Holding Richard's hand, her voice quivering, she declared she could not give up the babies she had dreamed of having. Even knowing the extreme danger, she asked for time, maybe enough to let the babies reach a gestational age where premature birth might be viable. Despair was etched on Richard's face and that of the medical staff. A choice like that could be fatal for her. Still, Sophia's determination was apparent. Through tears and prayers, the couple decided to do everything possible to prolong the pregnancy until it reached a minimally safe point. Though the decision was made, anguish became a constant companion. Day by day, time seemed to slip away. Sophia needed to be hospitalized frequently for monitoring, both of the twins and of the tumor's progression. Her schedule included regular specialist visits, weekly blood tests, and ultrasounds to track the babies and the malignancy's growth. Meanwhile, rumors continued to spread back in town. Few knew the truth, Most preferred to believe the more absurd tales. Some even saw her worsening state as some sort of curse for something invented about her, linking her to unthinkable acts with the horse. Human cruelty revealed its darkest side during that time. During this period, Richard had to manage most of the farm's tasks alone. He came home exhausted, but still found time to visit his wife at the hospital, forcing a smile because he did not want to show his despair. He brought small flowers or fresh fruit as tokens of affection. Sophia, for her part, tried to keep her spirits up, but was tormented by intense pain and worry. What if, in the end, I leave these babies motherless? What if Richard and I never get to see their little faces? Sometimes she found solace by closing her eyes and imagining thunder running free across the fields, a symbol of perseverance, as if the thought of the horse made her feel more alive. The medical team did everything possible to relieve Sophia's suffering, but the tumor kept growing. She could barely stand for long, sometimes needed an oxygen mask, and suffered severe abdominal pain, especially when she moved. Nevertheless, her will to protect her children outweighed any discomfort. Each ultrasound showing the twins' strong heartbeats spurred her to endure another day. "I'll hold on as long as I can," she repeated to herself. This determination inspired some hospital workers who, despite seeing difficult cases every day, were moved by the struggle of this young woman who seemed physically frail but possessed unyielding maternal love and faith. Nature, however, rarely grants reprieves in cases so severe. One night, when Richard was already at home, he received an urgent call from the hospital. "Your wife is in critical condition. Come immediately." He bolted out of bed and raced along the dark road, arriving to find medical staff running through the corridors. Sophia was experiencing heavy bleeding along with severe contractions, a highly dangerous situation as she hadn't yet reached the 37th week of pregnancy. The twins were in fetal distress. Her water had broken and her blood pressure had plummeted. It was a nightmare scenario. Either save the mother or try to save the babies, but the odds of everyone surviving were slim. In the operating room, the obstetrician and oncologist joined forces in an attempt to deliver the babies in an emergency procedure while also removing the tumor. Richard, not allowed to enter, waited outside, heart pounding, mind filled with prayer. He recalled every detail of their wedding, every shared moment with Sophia, wondering how he could go on if it all ended tragically. Time seemed to stretch as doctors inside concentrated on a high-risk procedure. The corridor's silence was broken only by the sounds of medical equipment and the murmurs of nurses rushing for blood units and medications. After hours that felt like an eternity, the first glimmer of hope arrived. The shrill cry of a newborn echoed through the hallway, followed by a second, fainter cry. David and Victoria, the long-awaited twins, had been quickly lifted out of the mother's womb. Both were very small, born around 7 months gestation, but they were alive. Each was immediately taken to the neonatal ICU to receive assistance with breathing, feeding, and the fight for survival. The medical team's work, however, was far from over. They still needed to remove the malignant tumor and stabilize Sophia, who had lost a significant amount of blood and was showing signs of circulatory collapse. Once in surgery, the team discovered the tumor was larger than previous tests had suggested. It had entangled critical blood vessels, making removal even more complicated. At one point, the surgeon encountered severe bleeding that was nearly impossible to control. Multiple blood units were used to reverse the situation as they worked to cauterize critical areas. It was a race against death, punctuated by technical commands and silent pleas. Finally, after a few more hours, they managed to remove the tumor and close the damaged tissues. Sophia was extremely weak, but her heartbeat returned to a relatively stable rhythm. Though not yet out of danger, she had survived the operation, increasing her chances of recovery. In the waiting area, Richard could hardly believe it when a doctor, exhausted and sweaty, came out to give him the news. "Your wife made it through. She'll be in the ICU, but the next few hours are critical." He broke down in tears of relief, hugging the nurse who was with him. Then he ran to see the twins who were in incubators, breathing with mechanical support. They were so tiny and delicate that Richard worried about even touching them. Still, his heart overflowed with gratitude to see that despite everything, they were both fighting for their lives. In that moment, he understood that he needed to be strong for them and for Sophia, who would need all the support she could get in her recovery. The following days remained tense. Sophia stayed sedated, hooked up to monitors and a tangle of tubes and wires. The tumor was gone, but the risk of post-operative complications still loomed. The babies were in critical condition in the neonatal ICU. David had respiratory problems, while Victoria's heart rate kept fluctuating. Each visit, Richard spoke softly to them, gently squeezing their tiny hands. He clung to even the smallest victories. Today, Victoria needed fewer adjustments to her ventilator. David gained a few grams. Each tiny sign of progress lit a spark of hope in his chest. Thus, hours turned into days and days into weeks, in a slow and nerve-wracking process. When she finally woke up, Sophia was startled by the number of machines around her. She felt searing pain, but her first question was, "Are my babies alive?" A nurse smiled and confirmed that even though they were premature, they were fighting bravely in the ICU. That alone gave her the strength to endure the pain and necessary treatments. The doctor explained that she would have to start chemotherapy in a few weeks, once she was strong enough, to ensure that any remaining cancerous cells would be eradicated. She wept, but was grateful she was still there and that her children had a chance. She knew the path ahead would be long, but the courage sustaining her wouldn't let her give up. Meanwhile, back in town, word of Sophia's surgery and condition began to spread. Many who had laughed or made cruel comments about her supernatural belly were shocked to find out it was in fact aggressive cancer and a story of remarkable survival. The rumor about thunder started to be questioned, and those who had fueled it found themselves in an awkward position. Some, ashamed, tried to justify themselves by saying they didn't know the real story. Others, remorseful, looked for ways to apologize to the couple. Still, a few refused to acknowledge their mistake and remained distant, offering no words of support. It wasn't until Sophia was strong enough to write a post on social media, explaining some of what had happened, without delving into sordid details but clarifying about the tumor and her decision to fight for the twins, that most townspeople understood the extent of her ordeal. She recounted how she'd nearly lost her life and how the pregnancy hormones had enabled the rapid growth of the tumor. She revealed how devastating the past months had been, all while expressing gratitude to each healthcare professional who had supported her. At the end of the post, she asked everyone to think twice before spreading rumors, because one never knows the pain someone might be silently bearing. The post quickly went viral within the small community, garnering hundreds of supportive comments, prayers, and messages from people who had also faced cancer. Some apologized to her directly. Others shared their own family experiences with similar situations. It was a moment of collective catharsis, exposing human vulnerability and the importance of empathy. In addition to dealing with the medical trauma, Sophia found herself needing to forgive those who had judged her so harshly. She did so quietly, not publicly, but in conversations with Richard she made it clear she didn't wish to hold on to bitterness, for resentment would only weaken her in the fight ahead. Over time, David and Victoria gained weight in the neonatal ICU. Every gram gained was celebrated like a major victory. They gradually needed fewer machines to help them breathe, eventually reaching the point where they could take small amounts of milk from a bottle. Doctors estimated they would remain hospitalized for a few more weeks, but the immediate threat to their lives had abated. Sophia, in turn, began her first chemotherapy sessions, which left her weak but reassured that everything possible was being done to destroy any remaining cancer. Richard, eyes ringed with fatigue, tried to manage it all, visiting the babies, supporting his wife, running the farm, and dealing with the hospital's administrative hurdles. One afternoon after returning from the farm, Richard got a call from the hospital with the news he had been longing for. "You can come pick up the children. They're being discharged." He froze momentarily, then let out a joyous shout. He rushed to Sophia's room, eager to tell her. She was still recovering from chemotherapy, pale and worn out, but her eyes lit up upon hearing they could finally bring the twins home. That moment, so long awaited, signaled the end of a painful chapter and the start of another, filled with challenges, but also with hope. At last they could care for the twins at home, instead of within the cold walls of the ICU. Discharge day was loaded with emotion. Nurses and doctors who had become attached to the family insisted on saying goodbye, taking photos with David and Victoria, who left the hospital dressed in outfits Sophia had lovingly chosen. They were still tiny but healthy enough to continue growing at home. Before leaving, the mother shook the hands of every professional who had helped her, offering heartfelt thanks. There were tears, hugs, and words of encouragement. Then, with great care, the couple placed the babies in special car seats, while Sophia tried to get comfortable in the back seat, despite her lingering pain. The drive back to the farm was the most moving of their lives. Arriving at the property, the late afternoon sky was tinted in pinks and oranges, reminding Sophia of her childhood days spent gazing at the sunset with her father. The scenery now looked even more beautiful, symbolizing the arrival of two new family members who had already surmounted huge obstacles before even leaving their mother's womb. Richard got out of the car, opened the door for his wife, and took one of the babies in his arms while she held the other. A gentle breeze lifted Sophia's hair, and the birds seemed to welcome them with cheerful song. Surrounded by emotional silence, they exchanged looks of deep understanding, aware that they still had battles ahead, but were united and strengthened by each trial. Thunder, who always grew excited when sensing Sophia's presence, stood outside the stable, whinnying insistently. He seemed restless, as if he had been waiting for her all this time. Even in her fragile state, Sophia wanted to make the moment special. She asked Richard to help her walk over to the animal, carrying David in her arms. Richard held Victoria and followed carefully. As soon as Thunder spotted the little ones, he neighed again, but softly, almost in greeting. He touched his muzzle to David's tiny face and then to Victoria's, in a gesture of curiosity and acceptance. It was a moment that sealed the union of their entire family, the one malicious tongues had tried to slander. Richard captured the moment in a photo that would be framed in their living room. In it, Sophia, pale but smiling, holds David, while Thunder gently sniffs the baby's hand. In the background, Victoria rests in Richard's arms, watching the scene as though she grasped its significance. The image was living proof that love endures even amidst profound pain, and that genuine bonds cannot be broken by gossip and spite. It was also the marker of a new beginning, for from then on, the family would settle into a new routine, now with two children in need of care and a mother undergoing cancer treatment. Sophia's chemotherapy sessions were scheduled with breaks to allow her body some recovery time. During these periods, she suffered from severe nausea, hair loss, muscle weakness, and occasional bouts of tears. Nonetheless, seeing the twins gave her the resolve to persevere. David and Victoria also needed constant attention. They were premature, requiring specialized formula, close monitoring of weight, and controlled temperatures. Even so, each smile or coo from the babies served as fuel for their mother to withstand the therapy's side effects. Richard pulled extra shifts, getting up at night to warm bottles, changing diapers, soothing their colic. Still, managing the farm's finances while going through all this was no easy task. Medical bills piled up, part of the crops went unattended. Moreover, the farm required urgent fence repairs. Tireless, Richard relied on a handful of loyal employees who understood the gravity of the family's situation and worked harder to keep things running. The couple also received help from townspeople who, feeling remorseful about past rumors, offered to donate supplies, money, or their time to care for the horses when Sophia had to be at the hospital. These gestures rekindled their faith in people's kindness. At one point, a group of locals organized a fundraising event in the town square. There were stands selling traditional foods, live music, and local crafts, all with the aim of helping Sophia and Richard pay medical bills and feed their babies. Despite mixed feelings, after all, many there had once spread hurtful gossip, the couple decided to attend in order to show their gratitude. Wearing a colorful headscarf to hide her chemo-induced hair loss, Sophia took the stage with Richard to say a few words. Through tears, she thanked everyone for their support and emphasized the importance of recognizing that anyone can face unimaginable hardships. The event not only helped financially, but also helped heal emotional wounds. Seeing so many people pitching in, Sophia realized that previous hatred and gossip could be overshadowed by empathy and solidarity. It was as though the entire town had undergone a collective awakening, learning that rumors can have devastating consequences. While some refused to admit their mistakes, the overall mood was one of reconciliation. Richard, once furious about the comments involving Thunder, felt grateful to witness this turnaround. In conversations with Sophia, they both concluded that the greatest lesson was never letting anger consume them, for life was already hard enough. As months passed, Sophia's health began to improve. Test results indicated that, after surgery and chemotherapy, there were no signs of metastasis. The medical team was optimistic, but still advised caution, given she would need ongoing checkups. Slowly, she resumed some activities on the farm, albeit at a much gentler pace. Her main focus was caring for the twins, who were now beginning to smile and babble more frequently. Thunder remained a loyal companion, strolling near the fenced yard where the family gathered on sunny afternoons, as if he too wanted to be part of their circle. The scene was peaceful and filled with warmth. When David and Victoria turned 1 year old, the family hosted a small party with a cake, balloons, and a few close friends and farm employees. Though they weren't entirely out of the woods medically, the babies were already crawling around the house, bringing smiles and curiosity wherever they went. Thunder whinnied happily whenever he saw the children playing near the stable, and Richard joked that soon they'd be riding alongside their mother. Sophia, buoyed by successful chemotherapy, was able to enjoy that celebration with a peaceful heart, having lived through moments when she believed she wouldn't see her children's first birthday. During one of her routine follow-up visits, Sophia received the news that her scans were stable, showing no signs of a cancer recurrence. Though she would continue periodic checkups, the possibility of a long life lay ahead once again. Overcome by emotion, she remembered all those days when she feared she wouldn't survive to see her babies grow. That day felt like a rebirth. Returning to the farm, she wanted to wander through the fields, breathing in the fresh air and feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin, almost as if rediscovering the joy of simply being alive. Thunder accompanied her, trotting nearby, just as he had in the old days. It was impossible not to recall during those rides the ordeal she had endured over the past 2 years, the unbearable pain, the cruel rumors, the uncertainty over the baby's survival, the battle against a malignant tumor. All that now felt like a distant, yet pivotal chapter in her life. At the same time, she recognized a new version of herself, more mature, more compassionate, and less concerned with others' judgments. In the hardest way, she'd learned that we cannot control what people say, but we can decide how to respond. Above all, she understood that certain struggles transform us and teach us to treasure every second of life with far greater intensity. In subsequent months, David and Victoria began to take their first steps, always under the watchful eyes of their father, mother, and, curiously, Thunder, who seemed to grasp that there were now more people to love on the farm. Sometimes Richard would pick up David in his arms and hold Victoria by the hand, taking them to the fence to pet the black stallion. The baby's eyes lit up, and Thunder behaved gently so as not to startle them. These peaceful scenes stood in stark contrast to the slanderous rumors of the past. Who would have imagined that the same horse, once the target of such shocking gossip, would now be a playmate for Sophia's children? The story of Sophia and Richard stands as living proof that family unity, driven by love and courage, can overcome challenges that initially seem insurmountable. Malicious gossip can hurt and shake one's confidence, but it can never prevail against the truth that emerges through real actions. Respect, empathy, and the determination to fight for what matters can trump even the fiercest storms. Through tremendous suffering, this family not only saved themselves, but also taught a powerful lesson to those who judged them too quickly. Now, looking back, they see that that dark period served to strengthen their bonds and to demonstrate the power of forgiveness. If you've made it this far, thank you for following this long, intense journey. Sophia's story reminds us that before passing judgment or lending an ear to rumors, we should seek the truth and practice compassion. What many dismissed as a joke or gossip turned out to be a life-and-death drama, filled with pain and ultimately redemption. Today, seeing David and Victoria playing among the horses and growing healthy fills Sophia's and Richard's hearts with gratitude. They continue on, meeting each new day as another chance to celebrate life, nurture love, and prove that, above all, unity makes us stronger. If this story touched your heart, feel free to share your thoughts or feelings. After all, every reflection helps us make the world a kinder place, where stories of resilience inspire more compassion than judgment. Thank you for your time, and see you next time.